The most important thing is the victim. Let's call suicide hotline back. Call them back for the kind of support that pushes people to suicide. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it because people say that they're supposed to fucking help. Do they fucking help? Hell no. You got a time limit, homie.
Reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. We are here to help. Para español, oprima el número 2. To reach the Veterans Crisis Line, if you are a U.S. veteran or service member or are calling about one, press 1. To connect to specialized support for LGBTQ+ people under the age of 25, press 3. Otherwise, please remain on the line while we route your call to a Lifeline crisis counselor. Your call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance purposes. Please stay on the line while your call is directed to an available responder. Hi.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can now.
That's great. Again, my name is Jules. How may I support you today?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to hear you.
I said, I'm sorry again. My name is Jules, and how may I support you today?
Are you guys trained at your jobs, or are you guys volunteers?
No, we're trained.
The last person I talked to showed why it is that I tell people not to call suicide hotline. Pushing the victims to commit suicide is not helpful.
You had a bad experience.
I always have bad experiences. It kind of sucks when you've got a time limit. When you've got a time limit, it very much makes it so that it's automated. That's what it feels like. You know, when somebody is being victimized, you know, that's the reason people call you. Not because they're trying to kill themselves, but because they're being abused and they can't get any help. The worst part is that if it's a disabled adult who's on the streets, well, their predators are probably police officers. Probably their friends and family. They were probably victimized until they were homeless. Most often over, well, abuse. Being physically assaulted, being sexually abused, being shipped around in the system like you're an animal. It sucks. Then, of course, The real issue there is their abuse, but nobody wants to focus on the abuse. They want to focus on the, all right, we want to get you to say that you're suicidal or something that we could twist into saying that you're suicidal. So when you are bullied to the point that you literally commit suicide, it's because people treat you that way. They're not interested in stopping the abuse. They're not interested in looking at evidence or long-term abuse and calling suicide hotline. They're going to try to ship you off to somebody else. It's inhumane. All of these services are all paid by our taxpayer dollars and by donations to do what? To send victims around in circles and help their predators get away.
No, we sure hope not. That's not very good to have predators get away.
My name is Sean Schwartz. I have a YouTube channel, and on my YouTube channel it shows why autistic adults are thrown away so horribly. Dynamics of so many things. I could definitely teach people some things if they'd listen, but the problem is that neurotypicals are all selfish. That's why autistic people don't get social cues. We're not selfish. I'm disabled, so there's certain guidelines that are supposed to be followed for a disabled person, especially if they're being abused, but nobody bothers to follow those guidelines. It's against the law for them not to do that, but then I'm sent on a wild goose chase. I've been victimized into homelessness over and over again because of my best friend getting her brains blown out. In my defense, she did ask for it, literally. She got on Craigslist and advertised for somebody to blow her head off. Women seeking men. She got a 9mm through her head at Macintosh Dairy. When
I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, sorry doesn't fix it or get it turned in. It doesn't make the police follow the laws. It doesn't make any of the mandated reporters following the laws. You know, you can turn in murder from anywhere in the world. Isn't that amazing? If you're in France and you're watching a video on YouTube and you see somebody murdered on YouTube, you can turn it in from all the way in France. You can do that with any heinous crime against an at-risk adult too. You can turn it in from anywhere in the world. But people don't do that. What they do is they downplay our situations and our disabilities and talk down to us like we're retarded. The problem is that the whole line of questioning of, am I trying to harm myself or others, is completely out of line when somebody is being abused. When somebody is suicidal, the first question that should be asked is why, and none after that. You'll find most of the time that it's a two-part system if you bother asking why. A lot of times it's because they're being abused. They've gone to all the services that they're supposed to go to, all these services that their taxpayers are supposed to go to, that their dead husbands or dead fathers or dead grandfathers supposedly fought and died for in foreign countries. They get abused, and then they go to the mandated reporters who ignore them and blow them off. People who are unable to take care of themselves or defend themselves because of slander. It's not the slander that should be focused on. It's the abuse that needs to be stopped. That's why the slander is important. But people say, "Oh, we can't do anything about slander." What about when that slander gets people killed, like Natalie Bollinger? She's not the only person who ended up dead.
And Sean, can I ask if you're currently safe right now?
No, ma'am, I'm not safe. I'm not ever safe.
Have you been thinking of suicide?
Ma'am, you know that's a trick question. I don't call places as mandated reporters because I'm trying to commit suicide. If I was trying to commit suicide, I wouldn't call for help. I'd just do it. Sorry for saying that with such emphasis. People don't
Right.
commit suicide over abuse. They commit suicide over neglect. See, that's how every single one of my friends and family pushed me to the point that I wanted my life to end. They promised me that they cared. They promised that they would help me. They promised that they understood my disabilities, but they didn't. They just preyed upon them because I have a communication disability. But I'm autistic, not retarded. People, when they think of autism, they think of people in football helmets smacking their head against rubber room walls, and that's not it. Natalie Bollinger, she was always getting taken advantage of, same as me, and that's why we were friends. Her family are a bunch of predators, and so are mine. But she still wanted to make her predators happy, and she didn't care at whose expense. The only person that I want for their life to end is mine, but I'm not trying to end it. Instead, I'm trying to show why it is that people commit suicide after calling places. After the emphasis being on whether or not I'm going to harm myself or others. Nobody gives a shit who's harming me. And then people want to talk to me like I just need a counselor or a therapist. Do you know why we're sent to therapists when we're suicidal? It's because they're supposed to be mandated reporters. Most of the time when somebody's suicidal, it's because they're being abused. Women, when they're being abused, they're more likely to cut on themselves because they're more likely to get hurt. Boys are more likely to kill themselves. But boys, before they kill themselves, 80% of the time they tell a friend or family member. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, boys don't stick together. Us girls got to stick together. You can definitely say something about that being affected, but boys don't. They tell each other to shut up and, dude, I have my own life. I've got my own stuff. Or, hey, man, I'm a dude too. And not exactly like that, just roundabout. You know, like, hey, man, I understand what you're going through, but I'm a guy too, and nobody's going to listen to me. You got to do it yourself. But my disabilities prevent me from turning in my predators by myself. I'm intelligent, so people pretend that my disabilities don't exist, only when it benefits them. And then because I'm disabled, people pretend that my intelligence doesn't exist, only when it suits them. The problem is that I get overwhelmed with running around to try to get someone to help and understand instead of take advantage of me and not do their jobs. I've never once ever gone to a mandated reporter for them to try to talk me out of or convince me not to commit suicide. Every single time I've gone to a mandated reporter, it is specifically because they're supposed to be trained as mandated reporters. And they're supposed to assist people like me in defending myself against predators. But the thing is, I was forced into homelessness by these predators, and then nobody likes you. And I'm sorry for rambling like this, but the last person I talked to really just talked over me. At the first part, listened, but at the last part was very much in that role and mode of, well, I want to wrap this up and get off the phone and wrap it up and get off the phone and wrap it up and get off the phone. And I have a couple of numbers for you. I can't just keep doing that, ma'am. I have called hundreds of numbers, thousands of times altogether. Nobody ever does anything about abuse against at-risk adults. When we're stalked, we're not allowed to speak up because then we get treated like we're stalkers. People don't understand how much hatred or bias there is towards the homeless. 96% of those killed by police every year are males. 60% of those killed by police last year were homeless, out of a population size of 600,000, less than 600,000. 51% of those killed by police last year were disabled. I'm a man, I'm disabled, and I'm homeless. And I'm told I'm not woke enough. People don't see my disabilities. They see the color of my skin, they see my gender, and their assumptions take over. When I have a traumatic reaction to abuse, and I try to call it in immediately, I'm abused immediately because I'm having communication issues, and immediately people capitalize on that. I have Tourette syndrome, so I blink my eyes. So instead of listening to me, people just assume I'm on drugs. That's why I needed to be around my friends and family. They protected me. They protected me until, well, they really didn't. I was only protected because I hung out with them and I did good to them and for them. I have nightmares. I have permanent physical disabilities. I can't take care of myself, and nobody stops to understand what that means. Arguing with a disabled person about their disabilities isn't okay. There's a reason that I saved the paperwork, so people can see what's going on. So they don't have to just take my word for it. Because if they take my word for it, some of my predators are in some pretty high positions of power, and some of them only used to be. I got a question for you. You ever hear of true crime?
Yes. Yes, I have.
There's a woman named Natalie Bollinger. Now, as you probably know, cyberbullying is pretty big. People don't just harm me in real life, they also harm me across the internet through harassment and bullying and trying to destroy evidence of the crimes that are committed against me. And it's all over Natalie Bollinger getting her brains blown out. And the fact that I was easy to roll over by calling me mentally ill. I was easy to talk over because I have a communication disability and I'm scared. The evidence should have been important. It's evidence of child molesters and murderers. I've got the admissions even of a couple of murderers on my channel. I got evidence of people harming children on my channel and in my evidence in the vehicle, and evidence of people abusing other at-risk adults and myself. But nobody cares. None of these agencies are going to do their job without me having a friend or family member. I was stalked for over a year before Natalie was killed because she was on heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we teach people when they don't get what they want to just slander somebody's name? And it's not just slander, it's also a lot of other abuse. But that abuse is because of slander, and people don't stop to take a look at that, or as much hatred as people have. Why don't you allow people to defend themselves? Not you, obviously. Just this kind of abuse gives people brain damage, leaving people in a constant state of fear because they can't take care of themselves. I had housing. I did finally get housing before Natalie died, and I finally got disability before Natalie died. But it didn't make any difference because those rumors still socially isolated me. And that's what happens every time I go to a mandated reporter in this town, or anyone else for that matter. Social isolation. They will only meet with me in person, one-on-one. When I'm supposed to have a friend or family member there for my safety, there's always some reason they can't do that. Dr. Danelle Boggs is a mandated reporter I went to. Do what?
No, and Sean, it does sound like you've been unhappy with the previous experiences here, and that must be really frustrating. And I hope that I know that you have a lot going on tonight, but how would we be able to be more helpful for getting you a little bit of peace of mind?
Well, peace of mind comes down to my safety, and as an at-risk adult who's easily railroaded, my peace of mind comes down to having a safe environment, and I don't have one. I've already gone to all of the mandated reporters in this town and recorded all of them breaking the law. Because I'm called mentally ill, nobody's going to care, though. Even though a mandated reporter is required by law, when they're told about abuse against an at-risk adult, they're supposed to turn it into Adult Protective Services and law enforcement immediately. But they didn't do that. They sent me on a wild goose chase of each and every one of these agencies saying it's not their fault, I gotta go somebody else. They're sorry that the last person lied to me and told me to go there, but I gotta go to somebody else, and over again. I've been to Tillamook Family Counseling Center repeatedly. They're not doing their jobs as mandated reporters, they're committing Medicare fraud. When I get off the phone, what's going to happen is that I'm mentally exhausted. I'm going to lay down on a pile of trash in my vehicle that makes my back hurt. Some days I can barely walk, some days I can't walk at all. And I'm expected to do a lot of stuff with evidence that I can't do from in a car. having police officers repeatedly change the law to me. That's wrong. I already know what the laws are. I also know that they're not being followed. I know that if I go in by myself, I have to answer the two questions. Am I thinking about harming myself or thinking about harming others? I never think about harming others. Ever. I have to pretend to hate people in order to get heard. Do you know what that's like? Because if I talk nicely the way that I'm talking to you right now, people don't understand the gravity of the issue. I can't defend myself. I'm no longer capable. Now, a lot of the people that I have that are predators, they didn't start off being predators. They started off being friends who didn't understand. A lot of people wanted to sell a false narrative over the top of me talking when I tried to turn in the crimes that were being committed against me. Then there's also the fact that it's been all over the place. Natalie was shot in Colorado. I hadn't seen her for over a year by the time she got her brains blown out. But I'd had a lot of people threaten to kill me and threaten to kill my friends and family, but nobody cared. There was a whole bunch of fake accounts made to harass me and threaten me, and they still do that to this day, just not in my emails anymore. Now it's on Facebook. It's interactive for these trolls. And I have to continue to make it public until somebody does their job as a mandated reporter and gets adult protective services and law enforcement to do their job. But I've already gone to all the law enforcement agencies here in Tillamook and spoken to nearly every officer. I've also got them recorded breaking the law, which makes them not happy.
Right, of course.
When somebody wants their life to end, there's always a reason. That reason is usually abuse. Most of the time, here's the thing, calling suicide hotline is kind of like cutting for women. Boys kill themselves at 5 times the rate of girls starting at the age of 15. Girls start cutting themselves at 5 times the rate of boys starting at the age of 15. Boys literally have to threaten them to kill themselves when they're abused to try to get someone to listen to them and help turn it in. And when we go to our trusted adult and it doesn't work, we kill ourselves. It's pretty common. With women, they cut themselves at 5 times the rate of boys because, well, boys are taught to protect women. Girls are taught to protect women. We're all taught to protect women, but nobody's taught to protect men. Nobody's taught to protect boys. They're told they have to do it themselves. Or we have to deal with having to go to a woman who's supposedly our friend, but instead of listening to us, she has a big old trigger and meltdown because she thinks that only women can be victimized, and her predator was a man, so all men must be horrible, and it makes it difficult. And when I tell people, hey, if we can work together, then we can make a difference. But if you make the victim go in alone, especially if they're a disabled homeless man, because of the stigmas we've got today, nobody's listening to them. I get made fun of for being a homosexual, but I'm not a homosexual. I get made fun of for being a heterosexual, but I'm not a heterosexual. And no matter what, it's just bullying on a major subject. I went to my friends and family for help. When I was abused, I got treated like I was a retard. When I was separated from them, which is just a small part of what they consider abuse. You know, the physical assaults against me weren't the parts that hurt me. The parts that hurt the worst was being thrown away and treated like garbage. When I'd try to turn in crimes committed against me, I'd get grilled because there's no friends or family there with me to help explain it. or to stop them from talking over important details. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm so sorry for these experiences, Sean.
oh, I'm sorry's don't fix it, though. That's one of the big issues, too. I was told, you know what, Sean, don't accept sorries, accept changed behaviors, and I don't apologize if I can help it. But I also have PTSD, so I apologize all the time for stuff that's not my fault. I apologize all the time for things that other people did. But I I try calling all of the places that I'm told to call. That includes suicide hotline and the new 988 number. But instead of them understanding that I'm having communication issues because I'm overwhelmed with so much abuse against me and the fact that I have so much of the evidence of it, but I'm stuck in a car with my disabilities having to be afraid of the police instead of them helping me to turn in these pedophiles, turning in these rapists, turning in people who took advantage of me because I'm an at-risk adult. They should have put me somewhere. And they would have put me somewhere if it hadn't been for my friends and family member not helping me to do that, making me go in alone, telling me they understood, telling me they were aware of all of this and all of that, but they never once tried to turn it into the cops with me. So I had to record it with them. I had to record my friends telling me all this BS that they had told me as excuse for not turning in these predators with me. What they said was everything from they were afraid of the police, to they were afraid of the Bollingers, to they were afraid of the media, twisting them into being a predator just the way they did to me. Some of them were afraid that people would kill their kids. I literally have over 100 recordings with people who are going to help me where they are talking about people threatening to kill their kids and their family. And a lot of the people who claim that they would help, that threw me away, did so because of that. There's also a lot of people that Natalie Bollinger's case was a very big case in Colorado. And it's become a cult classic in the, what do you call that? True crime zone. I try to be as vulgar as my predators now. When they're as vulgar and as mean as they are to me, and I try to turn that in nicely, I'm blown off like it's no big major thing. And I know I've said that repeatedly, but now I'm stuck in the freeze loop because I'm afraid. Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry that my communication skills were diminished by the previous call, because the lady I spoke with before, I was able to speak more clearly and concisely. And with you, I'm just rambling because I'm overwhelmed and can't do anything else except ramble.
You're definitely okay. No need to apologize. I'm glad you called and, voiced your concerns about this, and it's definitely okay that you called in.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of times when I call services, they tell me about all these other services to go to, and I end up going around in circles for 6 months. The first time I called you guys was, well, the first time I called y'all from here in Oregon was before you guys had it as a 988, I guess. I've been calling from the Dalles, Oregon, and from Hood River, Oregon, and now I've been in Tillamook, Oregon for 6 months, and I'm trying to get help with the same thing. I'm trying to protect my evidence.
Sean, really quick, I know you. Sorry. I know you mentioned sleeping in your car. Would you like for me to send you some resources for housing?
The resources that you're going to send me for housing are Tillamook Family Counseling Center, as well as TCCHC, which is Tillamook County Community Health Center, or you're going to send me to CARE. I've already been to them all. I was sent to them all as mandated reporters, and instead of doing anything about that, they just wanted to focus on housing. When an at-risk adult is being abused, yes, housing is important, but there needs to be emergency accommodations for somebody who has been victimized into this situation. And there's plenty of resources for them set up in the state. I'm sorry, ma'am. At about this point of the night, I'm in a lot of pain, and I'm trying not to scream out in pain. I'm also mentally exhausted, so I need to sleep, but I can't sleep because I have nightmares about what happens when disabled people aren't allowed to turn in the crimes against them. I've seen too many bodies in my lifetime. I'm sorry I was interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, you didn't. You're okay. But again, I do want to thank you for calling in and just letting me know about all
I'm
of this.
sorry I couldn't hear you. There was a semi going by. Go ahead.
Oh, you're okay. I just wanted to thank you again for calling in and letting me know how you feel, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
And if in case you do need us, we're here 24/7, and I hope that we can be of better assistance the next time. So I hope you have a great night, and
I went to the services, and these professionals didn't do their jobs as mandated reporters. That allows the predators to do this again and again and again, and that is what pushes us to commit suicide. It's not the predators themselves, it's the way that we're blown off and dismissed and sent around to everybody else while everybody tells us it's not their job. It's how when we try to get help and we get so completely frustrated with nobody doing anything about the abuse that we say, hey, you know what? I need your help. I need a friend or family member. I can't get anyone to listen. Please help me to put a stop to the abuse instead of making me kill myself to make it stop. Natalie Bollinger and I were both begging for people to kill us. Both of us were begging for exactly the same thing. It's because her predators wouldn't leave us alone. And after her death, they just wanted to pretend like they could never, ever in a million years harm anybody. There's a lot of services in this county that I've sent to, ma'am. I've gone to every one of them needing a mandated reporter, and every one of them has blown me off as a mandated reporter by pulling the quick and easy card. When somebody's suicidal, there is always a reason. And you have to earn their trust, and maybe they'll tell you that reason. Well, for me, I don't care if you're not trustworthy or not. I don't care if you earn my trust or not. I'm going to do the right thing regardless. I'm going to say what it is that needs to be said regardless. I'm going to make the phone calls regardless. The problem is I can't process any of it because I'm disabled. I'm autistic. I'm not sure if you can tell how badly my communication is when I'm like this. And I didn't used to be like this, ma'am. I used to save lives the way that it needed to be done. People didn't need to call suicide hotline when I was there because I was a friend in person. It's when they don't have a friend or family member in person to help them that they end up calling you guys. By the time they call you guys, they're at the end of their ropes about trying to do something about the abuse. And if people who want their life to end are honest about the fact they want their life to end, they're treated like they're trying to kill themselves. No, they don't tell you they want their life to end because they're trying to kill themselves. They tell you they want their life to end because they're being abused and they're not being heard. And then, of course, we got to dismiss the entire issue by just calling anybody who wants their life to end mentally ill. I do want my life to end, but I'm not trying to kill myself. A lot of other people want my life to end too. I've got a lot of recordings with them telling me exactly that. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's unsafe for me to be stuck in a parking lot. And I'm sorry that I'm so tired I can barely communicate.
There's no need to apologize, Sean.
I try to go to all the places I'm supposed to go to during the daylight hours, but I always have to go in alone. I've got a lot of state workers recorded complaining about how the system doesn't work. The system doesn't work. It does work if we work together. The problem is, by the time I got to you, who's actually listening, I'm sorry for calling. I'm just afraid of being victimized by the police or the public again. Because nobody did anything about it the first 100 or more times. When somebody is killed and they're put on those true crime things, people become horrible. I'm falling asleep while I'm talking to you, but also when I'm starting to fall asleep, I have flashbacks of the horrible things that I've had to go through, and it just starts all over again. I have nightmares about living in my car and how I was treated. I have nightmares about being sent to the jail and how I was treated. All because nobody wanted to do their jobs before Natalie got her brains blown out. And afterwards, well, they just didn't want to get in trouble. I'm willing to spend the rest of my life in prison to turn in these sexual predators, these physical predators, and people who take advantage of at-risk adults. I am not willing to kill people to do that. Are you still there?
Absolutely not. Yes, I'm here. And I hear you. Well, I'm glad, Sean, that you were able to speak with me. I'm glad that you were able to notice that I'm here to listen. And I hope, if in case you call again, the next person will be able to listen as well. And I hope that you can find a safe place tonight, and I hope you have a great night's sleep. I hope you're able to sleep tonight
Yes, ma'am. You know what my
after this
shirt
call is
says?
over.
My shirt says Hope Dealer. Like
Oh,
HOPE. All right. So you're doing your whole sign off thing. That means that you're running out of time and I'm going to have to call them up again. You're all right. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for at least listening instead of talking over me the whole time or telling me how to think or how to feel or trying to suggest I go to a bunch of different agencies even though I've already been to them all and that's the issue. None of them advocate. Be safe. Thank
yeah.
you.
All right. You as well, Sean. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Uh